Welcome this evening. I'd like to go ahead and call this work session to order. Before we get started this evening, I'd like for everyone to please keep Miss Mary Riley's family in your thoughts and prayers. Miss Riley was with Warren County Public Schools for over 20 years, and she was currently serving as an instructional assistant at Warren County Middle School, and so her loss will be felt across our county this evening. Is there a motion to accept or modify our agenda?
I would make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, no. Moving on to the consent agenda, is there a motion?
I got a question about the consent agenda. Sure. I was noticing that on the discipline report, where is it now? On the discipline report, it doesn't seem we're not logging diversified minds still.
So we had that question and answer from Dr. Ballinger, actually just right before the meeting, and each school has a code except Diversified Minds. Those students are reported under their home school. And it's pulled from Power School because that's how the system is set up. Because they are, if it's a Warren County High School student, they're a Warren County High School student here for some period of time.
But for safety tracking mechanisms, that doesn't really give us a very accurate picture that way. Is there any way we could alter the way that that's logged?
So I'm going to ask Ms. Hives if there's a designation.
Okay.
If there's not, then you're going to have to do a lot of manual understanding and pulling, because you have to understand when you look at Diversified Minds and Brighter Futures, that's our non-traditional programs, but we also have non-traditional programs where students don't report over here. So for instance, with non-traditional, you have Diversified Minds, Brighter Futures, you have the 3 to 5 program that's housed over here, you have the 4 to 6 programs that are housed at our secondary schools, and then we just started a 3 to 5 program at one of our elementary schools. And so, those actually fall under pupil services and Diversified Minds, but those students, like in those 3 to 5, 4 to 6 programs at the schools, never report over here. But I want to ask her if there's a designation, but then we'd have to work through all the other stuff, because it's Diversified Minds, Brighter Futures, our non-traditional program does not have a school code with the state. And so we don't do any state reporting for this site because they fall under their home school, and they are just placed. This is an alternative placement for those students. So it's not their home placement where they don't transfer into here. It's really in what what our non-traditional program is actually designed to do, is to be a temporary placement for some students to get them over here, get some things corrected, and then get them back into school. And that's really the mode behind that. Now, do we have students that come over here and they stay over here all year or maybe finish? Yes, we do. But the method behind that is to really try to get our students back into our schools.
Yeah. So keeping all of that in mind, I don't think we would need to know how many issues happened off-site. The idea would be to keep a running log, a tracking log of referrals or incidents, what have you, that occur inside this building. So that way we can keep track of safety inside this building, what's going on inside this building. And if we want to split it down even further and split Diversified Minds from Brighter Futures and give a report from each, just, a basic tracking log. It doesn't have to be anything super fancy, and certainly nothing that tracks 3 to 5 programs at other schools that are off-site or through homebound or anything else like that. Just an idea of what is happening inside the walls.
If we want to separate it out that way, if that's the way that the board wants to separate that out, then we can do that. I mean, I first have to see if there's a designator. I don't know if there's a designator for that.
And then if there's not, then we can work on how we can figure it.
We'd have to see if there's a way to figure something out.
Perfect. Is there a motion on the consent agenda? I move that the consent agenda be approved as presented. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next up, we have reports. First up this evening, we have our school resource officer with an update.
Good afternoon. So I think everything should have been uploaded to Board Docs for you guys to kind of review. What I did this month was compare it to last month and broke it down by each of the offenses that we had, and kind of gave the year-to-date total there. So there has been, I think it was overall, there was 2 more instances from last month. So August we had 20 and September we had 22. As far as breakdown goes, we had more informational reports this month and less threat assessment, so that's kind of where it balanced out. For whatever reason, at the beginning of the school year, when kids are coming back, we will see a lot of threat assessments because things are changing for them. They just came back to school from the summer. I have started to work on comparing it to the 2023 data, but because some of those offenses are no longer charged, it's a little difficult to kind of really get a great grasp on what the difference is, because last year we were dealing with so many vape possessions at this time that it does look like we have trended down a lot, but a lot of that is because we're not handling vapes anymore. Speaking of vapes, we did our first vape awareness course last week. So we have successfully started that. We'll be offering it once a month for those that are caught with possession on school property. So we'll be doing those the second Tuesday. I think it's the second Tuesday of every month. So it's in between the school board meetings. So I believe it's the second Tuesday every month, and they're required to come to the sheriff's office, meet with myself, and Dr. Edwards actually came last week, and we made them sit through the entire hour and take a test on the presentations to kind of show that they are obtaining the information and not just there to pacify their time. So other than that, everything else has been kind of stabling out there. So any questions on that?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Next up, we have an update from ESS.
Good evening. That was everybody's. Andy Hall and John Smith, you saw your guys last month, so we just wanted to give you an update of where we are. All the data that you had in the report is through September. So we added some of the data that we didn't have last time. The budget's in there. We also had building-based subs, late requests, things like that. Just kind of give you an update where we were, or where we are. And Amy Chanley is doing a great job. She's been out in all schools. She has great relationships with the principals and the campus users, and also the substitutes. So we've had her getting integrated into the school and what's going on there. One of the things we have in our report, we're calling wraparound subs. We were working on that. They just work Fridays and Mondays. So we do have some people that don't want to work 5 days a week, but we have targeted people who just want to work Fridays and Mondays, and these are 2 biggest call-out days. So, working with Dr. Ballinger on those and making sure that they do work. So we have 2 now. We just started this a couple weeks ago, and our goal is to have 5 to 8. Because especially as we go into the holidays, the numbers are going to go up a little bit. So those are our 2 biggest days. We had a really big day, I think 2 Fridays ago, with a large number of absences, so it'll help out for that. And then just working with the HR team on long-term requests. We had a portal, but we were working with them, and we put it into a Google Doc. So now everybody can see it for all the long-term requests that you guys have, and who we have going into those, and when they're going to start and when they're going to end. So that's just something we work with the district on, just for simplicity purposes, to be able to file the data pretty easily there. So there are a couple updates here. I'm going to let John kind of walk through the numbers. If you guys have any questions, please let us know.
Thanks, Eddie. Good evening, everyone. Just to reiterate, like Eddie said, we did modify the long-term portal. We used to have an online specific submission through our company website. We've moved that to the Google Sheet, which allows greater accessibility from the school's administration staff. They can see the beginning start dates of the absences. Should better help us coordinate our long-term absences, helping us to put our aces in places. Just a couple of numbers to go over, which is included in the presentation. The overall district fill rate this month was, for September, was 71%. That's an increase of 1% from August. After factoring in the building sub coverage, that would bring us up to 83%. We did see 71 different subs pick up assignments in Warren County in September. And since August, we've hired 20 new staff members for the Warren sub pool. So the numbers for September in a snapshot. We had 908 absences, filled 681 of those. Of those, 17 were late placed, leaving us 227 unfilled. The highest fill rate for the district would be roads at 89%. Lowest fill rate would be the non-traditional at 41%. The district average fill rate, again, with the building subs, would be 83%. And again, just to reiterate, we did have 71 different individuals working in September. Fill rate for August was 70%, with the fill rate of the building subs at 77%. The numbers for August were 71%, that 1% increase. And then the fill rate with the building subs went from 77 to 83%. For reference, I do have the August absences by school broken down. The total filled, late placed, true absences, unfilled. Those were negated by the building sub and the reflective fill rates, both before and after the building subs. The numbers are also broken down for September, just for comparison to the August numbers. Again, the same kind of categories. Also added in the quarter day absences, the absences that were less than a quarter day or less, so a 0.25. In addition, with the negated building subs, bringing us the fill rates and the numbers after the building sub placed. You'll see that some of the schools are 84%, some of them are up to 99% after their building subs. And you'll see the ones that don't use the building subs, the numbers actually obviously stay the same between their fill rates and the building sub rates.
And just as a point of reference, we are not filling any of the quarter day sub requests.
And then at the previous meeting, the board had requested just a breakdown of the budget. In the breakdown, we have the budgets allocated by school, building by building. I went through and broke down August numbers, September's numbers. The fourth category, the fourth column, you can see the remaining balance that's available to the schools for their budget, the percentage of that budget that's remaining. Then I also went in and added previous last year's where they were as far as budgetarily concerned. So with the exception of E. Wilson Morrison and Skyline Middle, the finances are down for all of the other buildings of the district, giving us a net savings of $65,960. Again, while
Oh, sorry, can I ask a couple of questions about that slide?
Sure, absolutely.
And just to have some reference, the budget for each school, how did that get determined? Was that?
Yeah, so
What amount? What you?
So I put together the budget and then sent that out to schools, and of course, Rob did have to correct it, and that's one thing that when I was sending it out, I was looking at last year's numbers instead of because we actually had to reduce it because of the budget that was approved by the board of supervisors. So we did have to correct that. I need to make sure that if we did not get that to you guys, we need to make sure we get you the right numbers. I just think. So Rob, if you can check on that and send that to them if you don't mind. But I went through and just basically what I said was, okay, we're going to look at 80% of the expenditure, and here's what we're going to do, pop it in there. Actually, when Rob went through and looked at what we were approved and divided that out, that was more of a hard effort. Rob, I don't think you adjusted that any, did you? When you corrected?
I just took the budget that was actually approved and then prorated it to each school on the same percentage basis that you had done the other number.
Yeah. So
My second question is, Ressie is one of the largest schools. It looks like Hilda has a larger budget than Ressie.
So
Accurate?
So again, what we did is it's not an accurate science. So we just went in and we just looked at what some of the what the expenditures were at that school that previous year. Because you don't want to take the school that maybe had a high turnover and then reduce them a lot, and therefore they're not going to be able to make their budget. So I just looked at, okay, what were their expenditures last year? Let's do that at that percent and leave it there. And that was just a start place for us because, this was the first time doing a budget. So we had to have a start. So the starting place was just what were the expenditures by school last year? Let's move forward with that. Had that cover.
So did that formula reward the schools who did the worst last year? They get the biggest budget this year? Like they overspent their subs the most last year, so now this year they get a bigger budget gifted to them. I thought we had discussed the percentage breakdowns for the budget. I thought had been suggested we do it by pupil, and then it was like, well, but the varying class sizes, so one teacher teaching 18 kids versus 24 kids, and so I'd suggested we look at a number of eligible, like sub-eligible positions per school, so that way it would be divvied up fairly based off of you have this many staff members that if they're absent, they get a sub. This school has this many staff members if they're absent, like do it that way by percentage. Because, if I were in charge of, for instance, Wine County High School, who maintained and stayed on budget last year, now this year they get $117,000, like Warren County Middle School does, like Skyline Middle School does, but then you've got Skyline High School, who blew their sub-budget out of the water last year. They get allotted $161,000 for this year. So,
Well, they didn't have a budget last year.
well, I know they didn't have a budget last year, but when we broke it down by percentages, when I had asked for those numbers of how much did each school spend on their subs, where are we hemorrhaging money, it was determined that Skyline High School was where we were hemorrhaging money on subs. So it feels like it's rewarding Skyline Middle School to give them an extra $50,000 more than their other comparative schools.
So that number is still reduced from what they actually spend.
And I think maybe it's just being reasonable that if they had this huge absence issue last year, we're expecting some progress this year based on this budget reduction, but maybe it's unreasonable to think they can cut it all the way down by as much as.
I get that the budget is done for this year. I just feel like this rewards bad behavior and doesn't incentivize good behavior. And as who knows everything government, people work their pay plan. And
Yeah, I think it'd be good to look at this to see how this is our first year doing it for school, and then at the end, to
Right.
try to find some universal way of allocating.
And that'll let the entire town.
My question was just to make sure, and I understand what you're saying, and you have to start somewhere. And life happens, people, mistake time. My concern was just, I know, and I don't remember off the top of my head, staff-wise, compared Bressie to Hilda. I just didn't want Bressie, because they are a larger staff, to end up having a situation where they have a larger staff and they had a smaller budget. I just want to make sure, because if people need to take the time off and the days off, I want them to make sure they have it.
And you also have to remember, so one of the things we're doing is that at the end of each month, we're looking at those schools that have vacancies and that they're covering with an ESS sub. We're not taking that out of the budget. So what we're doing, and I talked to Mr. Valentine and Ms. Drake about, is looking at those positions that are vacant, that's being covered by ESS, that we're having to pay ESS more. We're going back up into the salary of where that position is budgeted, and then putting that amount for that month back down into the budget. So it holds it holds them harmless against that because they don't have a staff member. So, but it's coming out of their budget because really that ESS sub is being covered. It's basically in this line item up here in the salary range and not down here in the non-labor. And so we move that if that ESS is covering for a vacant position. So we take whenever that ESS cost was per month, we're going to pop it back down there. That way it's not affecting their budget for subs, because otherwise if you had a teacher, you'd be paying out of this line and not this line. So we're looking at that too and making sure that we're going to protect the health and support that.
one way we can think about that then is that it's not, in fact, vacancies that are driving Skyline High School's sub cost for the roof. It's staff absenteeism. Correct?
There are vacancies over there, and there are staff absences. I mean, we have vacancies and staff absences. Yes, ma'am.
The vacancies, you just said, are not coming out of their ESS budget. They're coming out of the money that was budgeted for that position. So they're not dinged on their ESS cost for those vacancies, those long-term subs. So that means that this ESS budget is truly reflective of the amount of staff absenteeism at each of these buildings.
So not last year. Last year, everything came out. If there was an expense that came out of, it got coded to ESS. So if ESS covered, we weren't moving money from that vacant position down to the line. And we did that at the end of the year to cover. So when you're looking at this number, that's based off of last year's numbers, and where everything was just lumped together. And now we're looking at it separately by school, and then we're also looking at long-term. So because I did have principals that said, hey, is this vacant position going to be hitting me in my non-labor budget for my subs? And so we talked about it. We said, okay, let's take whatever that salary is that's designated for that teacher. We'll look at that monthly, and then we can move that down so that is not penalizing that school that maybe could not hire a teacher and affect their budget negative.
So I understand we're doing that on our side, and that makes perfect sense. But when ESS is reporting, you're just reporting that it's a sub. On your end, you're still reporting a vacancy or whatever as a sub. So these numbers are vacancy if it's anybody that you put in.
Right.
Because that's their numbers. This is all.
Yeah, this is third number. Yeah.
Absolutely misunderstood that. I'm not saying or skating out.
On our side from. But
I get, wait, this is reality.
yeah, I'm sorry. I thought that was maybe again.
And we'll have to get you guys updated budgets as we move those, move that each month to pop that to cover, because I know you have some long-term subs in there covering some of those vacant positions. So we would just have to allow you guys to update your numbers too.
And we should add other comp, you said the long terms, and we can kind of slide that in there.
Okay. And that would help us if to get that report so that then we can look at it from the HR finance side, so that we can know how much we need to.
No, so we'll pull the billing with the long term as a separate line. That way you can see it.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a plan for these schools who stay under budget? And what do they get to keep the money that they save by having staff show up consistently and not spend for their whole sub budget? Do they get to spend that for something special for their school, or do they have to give it back to?
Let's go have to. One thing we have to worry about is we got to make sure that those staff members that's going to be taking the sick leave payout at the end of the year. This was to help pay for sick leave payout at the end of the year. So we don't want to.
So that's 2%.
Correct. That's one of the things is the sick leave payout.
Are there any questions for ESS this evening?
I did actually have a couple questions for you guys as well. Are we, when they have to pay for their fingerprinting background checks, is that supposed to be returned to the ESS and fully once they start working, or are we not rerouted?
We offer $125 to a substitute to reimburse them for their credentials after they work 20 days. 20. Yep.
Okay.
And then I did just receive a suggestion from the constituent suggesting that you guys might want to attend the there's a retired teacher luncheon once a month, and that might be a good place to go to try to get some long-term subs.
If there are routines, I find out the dates and they can send those and provide information. That's great. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And I know we kind of got cut off in the middle of your presentation. Are there any other slides?
Oh, no, that's what.
You want to talk about? We kind of went off wayward here. So I don't want to take away your time of presenting your material. So
That's why we brought the numbers and everything. Of course, yeah. So, but that's the budget breakdown by building, and then just kind of some summarization at the end. Still attending job fairs, working the social media, the job postings. As Andy mentioned before, Amy doing a fantastic job visiting, really being out there in the environment. She was at Pickle Stock. She attended the high school football game, attending the farmer's market. She was at the Festival of Leaves. I accidentally put that in as November instead of October, but that's just a past weekend. There's a scheduled job fair that she's scheduled to attend for next month on the 13th. Next page would just be a copy of the school visits. We like to have Amy just touch base with the schools, visit with the principals, the administration there to kind of see it firsthand, face to face, anything they could need. So we're just to break down some of the visits schools she's already visited. As far as retention goes for the subs that we have, still continue to send out our newsletter monthly with updates and important information. Continuing the Sub of the Week program. So far at this point, 8 different subs have been acknowledged. And we're still targeting that Tuesday, Friday mailer in order to offset those 72-hour absences, which is the window that most subs are picking up. Still working for the late placed and pending absences. Those went down this month. We saw a reduction in the late placed absences. Last month we were in excess of, I believe, 48 to 50. This month we only had 17. So that shows that the schools are proactively getting the absences and the assignments in there in a more timely manner rather than placing them after the absences occur where we can't fill. We did create we defined the wraparound building sub to attend specifically and address specifically. Mondays and Fridays have been very difficult. We've seen a huge jump in the absenteeism on those specific days. So rather than targeting and using a building sub across the 5 days of the week, during the middle of the week, they may not need the building sub coverage guaranteed every day. We can relate that more to the daily subs, so that the people that are in the pool to pick those up. We're targeting those Fridays and Mondays specifically to help offset that late place jump that we see from Thursday night or Sunday evening. So far, we have one school. We have another one at the beginning this Monday. Again, hopefully to get into 5 and 8 there to help offset those locations. We've seen a great, fortunately from communicating and talking to schools, we've seen the absence splitting kind of stop. We're not seeing the schools break down AM and PM absences, which greatly increases the numbers as far as the absences in the district. They're just leaving them as full-day absences, which again, are majority of now which are being picked up by the building subs or the active subs in the pool. And that just, kind of wrap up a couple of things we're working on. We were one of the sponsors for the Festival of Leaves. We're going to have some yard signs that are going up, and we're going to build awareness out in front of the schools and around the town. And one of the things we're going to do is, you've noticed that there is no real relationship between the district and any of the local universities or colleges, which we found in other locations in other states is a good tap for potentially for substitutes and substitute teachers, given their class schedule and predilections. So we're going to start reaching out to the local colleges, scheduling days to go and visit, just to see if we can get some of those people again as they're graduating, as they're matriculating, or even as they have availability through the hours. And that would summarize our presentation. Any other questions?
I decided to say anything. I've been your biggest critic, but you guys have turned it around and we're seeing things moving in the right direction. And so thank you for that. I appreciate it.
As the district's been great. So, and Amy coming on board has really, provided that daily support. And so we appreciate your help also.
Adford, she's fabulous. So
Yeah. Yeah, I had some positive feedback. So I think for anybody listening tonight, if you're a sub or thinking about becoming a sub, I had a sub reach out to me with just some ways that she thought maybe things could be improved. And I sent a message to Dr. Ballinger and Ms. Drake. They, I guess, immediately got it to Amy. She contacted me right away. She met with the sub right away. Both of them followed up with me that they had a great conversation and thought that it was all worked out and found ways to improve. So I think that, yeah, if there's a sub that's seeing something that maybe could be better, she seemed really receptive to working through that. So hopefully they're taking advantage of that. Yeah, so great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Next up, we have a food service update.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members. I'm going to turn it over. I did want to let you know that the presentation is a little bit different because I did ask her to update on some things for you all. So I'm going to go over here and get pulled up. As the call goes through. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, how are you? Long time no see. Sorry. I think the last meeting I had COVID, which I don't think I had the entire pandemic. So it was weird. But thankfully everybody in our office has passed it around and we're all cured now. So I'm going to give you 1 second.
For some reason.
Click.
Agreed. It's bigger.
All right. Normally I bring you paper, but I left my whole folder on my desk, so I don't have paper for you tonight. On board docs, the file is a little bit different, as Dr. Costner said, than what we're going to show you. We just added a couple little things because I just partnered with a new farm for Farm to School. I was waiting on a third quote to come back. I'd reached out to several farms to see who we could get to participate with us. And I'd only heard back from 2 farms for a couple of weeks, and I finally got in touch with a farm in Winchester, which actually ended up sending us our lowest quote. So we are working with a new local farm this year. So we're working with the farm in Sperryville last year, so that will be at the end of the presentation. On your first page here, just a little program update. We're still 100% free meals through the CEP program. Our CEP percentage rate through the federal program has raised from last year was 44% directly certified to now 46%, which means our reimbursement rate has gone up a little bit through the program, which is good. And we're still feeding a lot of meals, and we are up over 100,000 meals this year, and that is due to the summer feeding program, which we had added, which we were allowed to add. So that combined with the CEP meals, we are total year-to-date served 381,733 meals, where last year in 2023, we had served 239,680. So just that extra month of service added a lot of meals there. So currently the district's excess dollars sits at $311,928. So that's, last year we were $56,000 in the hole. So that just having that extra summer feeding program month really helped obviously the program very much. Here's some pictures of current food items. We just added these new smoothies, and the kids are super excited about them. They're made with applesauce, yogurt, and mixed fruit, and then we're adding fresh fruits to them. We have our Chinese food at the high school, and then we have our made-to-order burger bar there as well. So hopefully if you pull it up on your board docs, you can see those pictures nice and clear. I did give you a summer food service program update. I can't recall if I had seen you all since we wrapped it up, so I wanted to make sure you had that. We served 299,143 meals in the 3 months that we operated. That's a lot of meals. We were really busy. It was a very successful summer program. We actually, in Warren County, served the most meals in Region 4. So it was really successful here. Our community was extremely thankful. I never saw so many thankful people ever. It was really, really awesome. We were audited through VDOE. They had really excellent remarks. And then with the amount of volume that we had, we also received a visit from No Kid Hungry, Virginia, just to do a site visit they wanted to watch. And then we also had 3 ladies from USDA come and watch as well, which just was nice. They just came to see what we were doing and see why the numbers and why the participation was so high. So it was really, every time an agency comes, the staff is so nervous. It's really cute. But then they always feel comfortable once, they're like, oh, okay, they seem happy. We're doing a good job. And so it was really nice to have those 3 agencies come visit us this summer. And there's a little picture of us. There was more people that worked, but that was just one day. I posted a lot on social media. We have a lot of upcoming events. Right now we're participating in Sodexo's Healthy High School Challenge. We do this annually. This is where we are trying to encourage students to take fresh fruits and veggies. We are obviously partnering with a new farm, and we have DOD, which is a government-funded produce program where we can get fresh produce, and lots more local produce is available to us through there. And local means within a 250-mile radius, so it can come from anywhere, around us in the 250 miles. And So we are trying to encourage them to take reimbursable meals through fresh fruits and veggies. And there's Sodexo prizes for winning the Healthy High School Challenge. And they haven't sent out the prize packages yet, so I didn't put that information on here. On October 31st, we plan to have some cute little mummy dogs and mummy pizza, and we have some special parfaits there with some vampire teeth on them that we're going to be serving on that day. Then we have November 14th, where we'll have our annual Thanksgiving meal, and that's our admin Liz's son there last year eating Thanksgiving meal. We will also, this year, we haven't in the past couple of years done a holiday meal in December, but we're going to do that as well. We're going to add that back by request. And then the farm that we'll be working with out of Winchester is called Shawnee Springs. And right now they're going to be delivering farm fresh apples because that's what they're growing in season. But the nice thing about this farm is that they also, in the spring and the summer, will be able to bring peaches, squash, zucchini, and cucumbers. And we've not been able to get those from the past local farm that we were purchasing from. So not only was their quote lower, but they also had other fresh produce that we could purchase from their farm, which I was pretty excited about. So it's, there's actually, they have markets over in Winchester as well called Shawnee Markets. So, but they're providing to Frederick County as well. So that is the new farm we're going to be working with. And that's all I have. Any question? Thank you so much.
I think you did have Sodexo bring by some other
Yes.
schools or something?
Oh, yes, we did. Yes, we had a general manager tour. My district manager has a few new general managers, and he brought them through to tour just to see how we do our line setups. So kind of like the standard of how serving lines should be set up and how serving lines should look. And that always makes the team go really, really proud as well. Our cafeterias really are exceptionally well managed by people who care. Our team really cares, so they do a really wonderful job.
And that's just a compliment to you and your team for doing such a great, wonderful job.
Thank you. Any question? And also, I got married Friday, so when my last name changes, I'll let you know. Okay. Congratulations. Thank you.
Well, you be very third then. Next up, we have an instruction report this evening.
Hi. Good evening. I'm here tonight with a few members from the instructional resource team that will be presenting on some of the coaching initiatives that we have taking place in the division. We're going to pull up the presentation and might have to hit the refresh button.
It should be there, so if you just put it in the and
Yeah.
thank you.
So I have with me tonight Hope Petty. She is our teacher support coordinator, and she will be talking about our Pathways program. I also have with me Darcy Cup and Eileen Kanesh. They are our curriculum coordinators. Darcy oversees math and science, and Eileen oversees English. And they will be talking about, and I always have to look at it because I have to make sure I'm getting the words correct, our co-coaching, co-teaching teams. So this is a model that Warren County has adopted and developed to help support our students with disabilities in the classroom with co-teaching teams. And they'll talk a little bit about how co-coaching is working. And they developed this presentation and also shared it at a national conference in Charlotte, North Carolina last month alongside Carla Scott, who is our special education coordinator, but she wasn't able to be here tonight. So Darcy and Eileen will be talking about that. So with instructional coaching, I'm flipping. You got it. Thank you. So with instructional coaching, this does help to support our comprehensive plan for 21 through 26. It addresses Objective 1 to reach 90% pass rates on our SOL tests by offering staff development that supports active student engagement,
teaching strategies, the co-coaching, that sort of thing. The Pathways program that Hope's going to talk about, and it also helps to support Objective 2.0 about retaining highly qualified staff by providing quality induction and mentoring. And so some of the pathways and some of the coaching that we do with our both new and veteran teachers helps to support that as well. Thank you. All right, so with that, I'll turn it over to Hope for Pathways. Good evening, everyone. So tonight I'm going to talk about our Pathways program and how it supports not only our new teachers, but all teachers in the school division. First, it's aligned to our division level goal of having all of our instructional staff trained on those highly effective teaching practices. And within that comprehensive program, it's truly inclusive. We've had all the different departments, teachers, many different stakeholders look at it and ensure that it has everything tucked within it to be sure that our students are getting what they need. It supports the following that are listed there, such as our SOLs, the profile of the Virginia graduate, the Virginia standards for professional development, as well as the uniform performance standards, which are broken down into 8 categories. And then it has the potential to have a significant impact on accreditation, chronic absenteeism, and discipline, because we in our classrooms are conducive to learning. Our students are going to want to be there and learn. So it's broken down into 3 pathways, and we believe that there's something for everyone. And the first pathways, we call that the Essentials pathway, and it's designed to support teachers in their first year. A celebration that we have found is that our novice teacher retention has seen a decrease of 30%. So pretty excited about that. So the teachers that we're working with, when there's less of them, it's easier to give them more individualized and meaningful support. I spend a lot of time working with them one-on-one and have our coaches doing the same, or instructional partners. We focus on best practices and we have them build out portfolios. Those portfolios really open up conversations and dialogue. It does require an increased visibility by people at central office who work on the instructional resource team. It requires increased visibility by the administrators, instructional coaches, technology coaches, so that they can really have that conversation about instruction. It's all anchored into self-reflection based on the 8 uniform standards that range from professional knowledge all the way to student academic progress. Then, once those novice teachers kind of master those skills, they can start to shift into the effective teaching pathway. And it's broken apart based on the rubric the state pushes out. It goes from a 1, which is ineffective teaching practices, to 4, highly effective teaching practices. The Essentials has outcomes in there that are all aligned to a level 3, which is effective teaching. It should ensure that we're striving towards consistent use of those teaching practices, and it may lead or should lead to expected levels of student achievement. Once you hit the highly effective teaching pathway, that's kind of like that master teaching status. That's like achieving a 4 on it. We're looking for teachers who are striving towards continual use of high leverage practices that are going to lead to advanced student academic progress. This pathway grows our teacher leaders. It grows our mentors. It creates model classrooms where they can then be a place where others can go in for peer observations, or others can be video recorded, and then that recording can be shared out. And then also we're building out a professional development library in that way. A new teacher can shift throughout these at their own pace through the use of an individual PD plan, and that once they get through that Essentials pathway with very exclusive support, they then get an instructional partner that works with them one-on-one. And think of an instructional partner kind of like a thought or an accountability partner. They work on about 3 to 5 outcomes or it's almost like a teacher standard in a way, with success criteria, and they provide that support and that conversation along the way to ensure they get there. All of our teachers have access to this, and they can kind of look at each of the pathways and pull out the outcomes that work best for them. Other ways we support, so thinking of that highly effective teaching pathway or that master level status, we started to really build our mentoring program here at Warren County. 23% of our teachers have that training. And within that number, we have about 14 induction coaches serving in those roles, 2 of which are pretty unique. One serves all of our CTE teachers because we saw a high turnover there a couple years ago, so we're providing them support. We also noticed a high turnover in our art departments across the district, so we have an art induction coach we have 2 art induction coaches that work with all of the teachers in the county and pull them together. Everybody else is building-based, and then we have 44 mentors. That number has decreased significantly as well because we have less novice teachers this year, which is super exciting. All of our teachers in the school district have access to the professional growth self-reflection tool that's aligned to the 8 standards. They can then use that to create and develop their student achievement goals, and then they can use that to decide what would their professional development goal look like for the year. Use of the pathways or the instructional partnership, as well as instructional coaching, is an option for that. And we are also offering choice professional development this year, but we worked really hard this year to align it to both the division plan and the long-term comprehensive plan. And so you can see an example up there on the screen. It's based on the data that we collected from the teachers, so it has a lot of teacher voice built in, and we looked at data from previous years of what was popular, and then also offered opportunities for everyone. As you look at the sample, you may see that there's opportunities to facilitate professional development or propose a workshop. They can act as instructional partners or receive that mentor training, but then also things for our elementary teachers, such as the BLA training that is taking up quite a bit of their time. That can be an option. And then we have that undetermined classroom that's super exciting because that builds that self-determination. And that's also to add, also gives them lots of ways to earn recertification points during the day at school. Thank you.
Good evening. So like Ms. Bragg said, Darcy and Carla Scott and myself presented this at Charlotte, talking about co-coaching the co-teaching teams. What that means is it's the special education coordinator, along with one of us curriculum coordinators, working with co-teaching teams. Co-teaching is our model here at Warren County for most of our special education students. And what we found when we were trying to coach either the special educator or the general educator in isolation, there were pieces that were missing. So we had this idea, we should jump it together. We should try to, model what we say, right? Co-teachers should be working together, so let's co-coach that together. So what we focused on was taking data and then using that data to drive their future instruction, because we found that was an area of need for most of these classrooms. Last year we completed 4 cycles. We started this midway through the year, and this year we currently have 4 cycles going for the 24-25 school year, with more to come, hopefully.
So why a co-coach model? So co-teachers work together to service all the students in their classroom, no matter if they're tier 1, tier 2. So when we do co-coaching model, we're working with both teachers at the same time so that we can leverage the 2 certified or the 2 teachers that are in that classroom to the highest capability. So we have them collect data and then use that data to figure out, okay, these students need help in this area and these students need help in this area. How do we service all that in the classroom to the best ability of students? And then to also strengthen that core instruction. So introducing the different ways to co-teach. So maybe you're doing parallel teaching with 2 teachers, maybe you're doing small group instruction and then like some breakout stations, just kind of building that core instruction for all the students.
So here's what we kind of have accomplished in the past year. The teachers that we worked with are continuing to use the data collection and the flexible grouping within the classrooms, and one of the special educators is now working with the new general educator. She has asked us to come back into her classroom and work with her and her new teacher again. So that is great. Teachers are continuing to reach out for support. Like we said, last year we had 4 coaching cycles. We already have 4 going this year, and we're only a quarter of the way through the school year. So we hope to impact more co-taught classrooms throughout the division. Meeting with these teams helps keep everybody on the same page. And like Darcy mentioned, we're utilizing both educators in the classroom to their fullest potential. and everybody's getting what they need then. We're using that data to drive that instruction so that we're not waiting until a benchmark to decide, oh, we missed teaching main idea. We can see with, that quick data collection, oh, main idea needs to be taught again. I'll take those students and you can, remediate on this other skill that students are weak on. So we found that by modeling this with the teachers, we thought, well, we don't really have this at the division level other than, Carla working with Darcy and I. So we created a special services instructional resource team collaboration. So what we do now is we meet once a month with, it'll be with Miss Sperling and her team, with Miss Lee, and we've been collaborating on, well, what does instruction look like on the IRT side? Okay, let's bring special services in. Where do we need to head? So we're really excited to continue that partnership this year. Any questions?
Thank you.
All right. And the section here that I'm going to speak to is our instructional leadership for administrators. We are partnering this year to offer all of our principals, assistant principals, and deans with professional development focused on observations and feedback. The data behind the decision to move in this direction about observation and feedback, it came through our partnership with CIP and some data that they presented to us last spring. Here in Warren County, we have a discrepancy between the number of teachers that are receiving evaluations and feedback that suggests highly effective teaching strategies are taking place in the classroom, but our student achievement data, and we've discussed accreditation last month, doesn't match that. So we are working to calibrate and coordinate what's happening in the classroom more effectively with student achievement. And that comes from training our administrators who are doing the observations and providing the feedback. The other side of the feedback is it is only through the feedback that we're going to be able to grow our teaching staff into those highly effective educators that are able to support our students in all the many needs that they have in the classroom. So we are encouraging our instructional leaders in our building to get into classrooms more frequently, to be doing more types of observations. And observation has to become more than just like that, I have to evaluate a teacher, so I'm checking the box. It's got to become more than just the checkbox activity. This is how we're going to change instruction and improve student achievement in Warren County, is through feedback from our instructional leaders, and those are our principals, assistant principals, and deans, alongside the support that they receive from IRT to be able to move instruction forward and in a positive direction. So as we're growing our administrators, again, looking for that calibration and coordination within the buildings and across the division so that everyone understands, kind of circling back to some of the pathways Hope was talking about, what does effective teaching look like? What is truly highly effective teaching? And hopefully calibrating that to help our student achievement. So how does this model change our practice? Again, kind of moving from observations as simply an evaluation tool, but into that coaching feedback tool. So increasing those opportunities for our staff administrators to get in there to observe classrooms and provide feedback to teachers. The phrase that we're working with Chris Jones, he's the executive director of VASCD. He's providing our professional development to our administrators. He uses the term cognitive coaching. It's a partnership. Not every observation feedback is, this is how I would have done it, so this is how you should do it. It needs to be a conversation. They need to have data from those observations to look at, to see, and reflect upon in order to improve their practice. So it really becomes a thought partner as well as someone to lean on to get those ideas to move instruction forward. And then the compilation of those many observations becomes the final evaluation. Those pieces are playing into that opportunity to provide that truly final evaluation that is a body of work and not just, I came in your classroom one day this year and wrote your evaluation and labeled it effective, ineffective, highly effective.
So all of this speaks to the programs, the Pathways program, the co-coaching, co-teaching teams, and the instructional leadership professional development we're providing, all in the name of improving student achievement. So that's just a few of the initiatives that we're working on to help support our staff and our students. Do you have any questions for me or for Art?
I think this is a great idea, great presentation. Thank you, ladies. One of the things that we're talking about later this evening is about self-evaluation of ourselves, maybe trying to set some goals for ourselves in different types of reports. You've done these reports many times. This is another great report they put together. And I think for us, sometimes, I mean, this is the big picture. You're sort of in the weeds on these things. To see some stats about, like you were referencing the objective 1, objective 2 of the strategic plan, which is great. Or if there's some way to have a, like quarterly that, we've observed this many people, and these many people have improved based on this, and we can't just wait on the SOL. So in sort of some way you can actually evaluate that it's happening in real time. I mean, obviously you're going to do it, but the hope is that it will improve student achievement. That's the goal. But if there's some way of measuring it, whatever that definition is, along the way would be, in whatever version you want to say measurement works, that we as the board can say, well, they said they were going to do this, and look at them do it, and look at what the results, and it should eventually help the SOLs.
Fine. Absolutely. I will say one of the questions that I'm going to be asking principals and IRT when we meet to talk about like where they are with their school plans and things is, what evidence do you have that shows that you're making instruction, making the time for that instructional priority that we've set as a division? Because we have struggled to get into classrooms to provide that kind of feedback because we're caught up, our administrators are caught up in, discipline processes and all things that need to get done. But this is how we've changed instruction, and that's what we're here for. And so, what evidence suggests that, you're making that time in your building? So I think that student achievement growth can definitely be part of that conversation.
Good.
And those markers, like you said, benchmarks along the way. Thank you. Anything else?
And how is the DLA?
Say that a little bit.
How is the DLA training going?
How is the BLA?
Yeah.
Oh, Eileen, come on down. So, Eileen is really the one that's carrying a lot of the water on the details of the implementation of the BLA. It is underway. We are definitely seeing, I think, an increase in the use of those high-quality instructional materials in our K-5 classrooms. We're using, U-Fly phonics development in K2. So we are seeing progress on those. The last meeting that I sat in on curriculum for English, I feel like that the feeling around the VLA, now these are 5 representatives, so hardly, the whole teaching staff, but I feel like the feeling of the VLA, there's starting to be an understanding of what it's designed to achieve. We have completed our VALS testing for K3. That is the placement, early warning, the screener. Thank you. I've got early warning stuck in my head after today's conversation. The early warning system of, our students labeled as high risk, low risk, medium risk, and that determines who's on a reading plan. And I would say it's probably about 1/3 of our students that have a reading plan, K3. So a little over 1/3 probably have a reading plan, which means they're in the high risk band. They're not reading where VALS designates them to be. So we have written those and getting those implemented, purchasing intervention materials, and we will have an update to the literacy plan shortly for the board. I'll let Eileen talk a little bit about the training.
So the state has finally compiled a way for us to see who's registered. That was kind of foreign to us until 2 days ago. So I went through and highlighted everybody who has gotten their name registered, so they've got an account to begin the training. And I would say we are about 85% there. 85% of our teachers have gotten at least registered. We have a couple teachers that have already finished. Some that have not yet started, so and a bunch of people in between. Our VLA reading specialists and I work together to put together a pacing calendar that will be going out after we meet Friday. And that kind of tells them how to be on track to be finished before summer. They don't have to follow said pacing calendar, but this is like, hey, if you don't want to have to do this over the summer, here's how we suggest tackling this throughout the school year. I feel like, at first there was a lot of big feelings that came with this, but like Ms. Bragg said, now we're kind of to the point where it's like, okay, this is here and we're gonna get this done. So, yeah, I mean, all in all, I feel like we're chugging right along.
And like I say, that's not to say that it's an easy lift or that, there aren't concerns rolling into, the inbox about specific things. But overall, I feel like that there has been some movement and this is where we are and what we have to do. Professional Development Day on November 5th. So some buildings have allotted some time for people to work on some VLA modules at different times, that sort of thing. It may not be the whole day, but it's part of the day at that elementary level. And we have middle schools.
They're registering as well. So their names were sent in last month, and they should be fully registered, I would say, within the next month. So one of the problems we've encountered is the classes are offered through Canvas, which is also what our students submit work through. And so when they get that notification that they've been registered, it looks like a student has submitted work, and so it easily gets deleted from the inbox. So we have to go fishing for it.
So we'll pick up 4th through 8th grade is full implementation next year, but those modules are out for our middle school teachers to complete. So we're working on it.
Can I ask, with the way VLA is set up, I understand that there is a goal to address those students who are below grade level, and you mentioned about a third of our students have a reading plan. Does the VLA address everybody else, or is it really just geared at those lowest performing students?
So the Virginia Literacy Act is intended to get all students to read. And so what we know is that some students will learn to read no matter how you instruct them. But some students also need direct systematic instruction. And so we know that with direct systematic instruction, most students can get there. And so that's why the focus has been on this body of evidence known as the science of reading that tells us how the brain actually acquires the language. And so it's intended for all students to make achievement. Now, I know there has been some questions about what about a student who's a high achiever and things like that. And so that's where we get into pulling targeted small groups. The way the Virginia Literacy Act asks for us to address instruction is we do tier 1 for everybody, and then we look at it like a prescriptive approach. So these students need this, we're going to pull this, kind of like that targeted data we were talking about with that co-coaching cycle. So I'm not doing the same rotation for 4 different groups and giving them the same thing in a small group. I'm pulling students who need help in this skill, and I'm going to pull students who need help in that skill. And what you'll find is that even students who are high achieving often have a gap somewhere that needs to be addressed. So it's looking at it more prescriptively and less holistically, I guess.
Does that answer kind of your question? I think so. If for those students that don't have a plan, is that still the idea? Like they don't have a specific plan or prescription, but they're still getting what?
Yeah. So I'll just say the plan is for intervention. The plan is for those students who need more. Everyone is receiving the high quality, evidence-based practice instruction. The plan is to lift those that need the more, the intervention, that sort of thing, to get them caught up on grade level. So I think that we will see higher, more rigorous instruction for everyone because of how the VLA is being implemented. I'll just share one thing that Eileen had told me was that she had gotten some feedback, I believe it was from a kindergarten teacher. One of the things we've struggled with is kind of how letters are introduced now. It's a little bit slower pace of the introduction of the letters to new readers, but and there was apprehension about that. But she said, yeah, they have less letters, but they're reading more words and spelling more words than they usually are at this point.
So part of it is just getting used to a new approach and allowing it to kind of play out a little bit. I just thought that was interesting because there's been a lot of apprehension about how quickly or how slowly the letters are introduced. But then when you hear that kids are reading more words, that's what we're after, not how quickly we get, the letter in front of them, so to speak. So I'll let Eileen.
Yeah. So if a student doesn't have a plan and they fall in that low risk category, they're not pulled necessarily to one of our reading labs or using one of our intervention programs, but the hope is that then they're getting some extension type of material. So we're taking their learning further. So during that intervention time, it's not like students who don't have a plan are just sitting there not doing anything.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you. All right. Thank you all. Thank you, ladies.
Next up, we have Disability History and Awareness Month and Disability Employment Awareness Month.
Good evening. October is Disability History and Awareness Month and Disability Employment Awareness Month. Our special educators and related service providers are privileged to provide students, to support students with disabilities within Warren County. We invite you, if you will allow, I have 2 brief videos that highlight and celebrate employment for individuals with disabilities.
Plus, it's a north great situation, then one senator. The other one first. You don't keep getting first.
Can and do add value to America's workplaces and economy. Each October, during National Disability Employment Awareness Month, or NDEAM, we celebrate the contributions of these workers with disabilities. We also reaffirm our commitment to ensuring all Americans, including Americans with disabilities, can put their skills and talents to work. Reflecting the importance of ensuring disabled people have equal opportunity to prepare for and succeed in employment, the theme for NDEAM 2023 is Advancing Access and Equity. Indeed, a disability-inclusive workforce is a strong workforce, and today, more and more leading employers across the U.S. are realizing this and reaping clear, bottom-line benefits as a result. Specifically, companies identified as leaders in disability inclusion had, on average over a 4-year period, 28% higher revenue, double the net income, and 30% higher economic profit margins than their counterparts. NDEAM is an annual opportunity to educate people about these benefits, celebrate progress made, and most importantly, commit to building a stronger, more equitable, and inclusive workforce going forward. It is led by the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy, or ODEP. Each year, ODEP works closely with its partner organizations, including those representing employers, people with disabilities and their families, and government agencies, to develop a theme and assist organizations in participating. This includes developing and distributing an annual poster. But the real spirit of NDEAM lies at the grassroots level. With activity and services in workplaces and communities across the country, employers of all sizes and in all industries are encouraged to take part, as are educators and youth service professionals, business associations, labor unions, and disability advocacy organizations. How can your organization take part? There are lots of ways. Visit dol.gov/NDEAM for inspiration. There, you'll find concrete ideas for event planning and resources to help you get started. And while on the site, be sure to order your free NDEAM poster, which is available in both English and Spanish. The ODEP-funded Campaign for Disability Employment also offers a variety of resources that can help in planning NDEAM activities, including videos and discussion guides. To access them, visit whatcanyoudocampaign.org. However you choose to participate, NDEAM is a great time to celebrate and educate. It's a time to reflect and reaffirm. It's a time to emphasize the importance of ensuring all Americans can gain skills and put them to work for the good of themselves, their families, their communities, and our nation's economy. It's a time to commit to advancing access and equity every month of every year.
So the theme of that video really exemplifies what we, as a special services department, try to do with students with transition planning. Transition planning is required for our older students, but it's important to know that transition is not just for those students. Transition planning can begin very, very early on with our children, and transition is for all students because all of those student skills, along with the academic skills, are building them to be able to have as many opportunities as possible in their community. This second video is a very short musical video performed by the artist Sting, and it does exemplify that access to good jobs for all theme, and that chain can begin with one individual.
What do you need? Eat the big eyes of old, and everybody's sawing that she could do the job. Oh, I went to the baker, this was so boring work. Oh, I died, I was the big eyes of mold, the big eyes of old. The dentist went to the lawyer and saw John at work. The dentist had some feet because the lawyer had Johnny good, the big eyes Johnny. That's shining on all of it. Follow to the dentist, the floss of your work. I found my eye Pete because the dentist had the feel because the lawyer had John because the big eyes of all, the big eyes of all. But what the fuck about was for Peter Brook? Oh, I don't think he can fuck my kid because the dentist had the feel because the lawyer John because the big eyes of all work, the big eyes of all, they bring going to the barber. Saw a part of work, he didn't have it cheap, but it was thanks to his first move. The farmer had because the farmer had seen was and had a life with it was the woman I took it was the big eyes, some more the teeth, the big and so the bird thought I did not. I even never,
So the hiring chain, this was a video that was shared recently by the Virginia Department of Education. This is a little bit of an older video, but it was just shared with me at the New Directors Academy last week. And I thought it was just really moving about the impact that one person can have and that transition and jobs are accessible for all. I do want to point out one other program that I've recently been made aware of. It is called the Inclusion Project, and it's through VCU. And these are amazing resources that have been planned, created, and directed by Virginia youth and young adults with disabilities. So this is really exciting. These are resources to be used by our youth with disabilities, by our teachers who are supporting our students, and it's created by individuals with disabilities. So I felt that it just made that really special. Our teachers can use them. Some of the resources are actually applicable to community groups, and I'm seeking ways to try and get some of this information into some of our local business folks' hands. There's one resource in particular that provides tips to create a welcoming place and a sense of community for individuals with disabilities. It's sort of a self-evaluation tool that business owners and individuals and group people who are leading groups can, who are interested in making their spaces and their groups more inclusive, that they can use this checklist, again, created by individuals with disabilities to see, is my space, is my group, is my business welcoming and accessible for individuals with disabilities. And I think that's just a wonderful thing that we're looking forward to sharing with our community.
Yeah. And then the partnership between Warren County Public Schools and Landon is puzzled.
Yes, this is a community partnership that we're excited to share about. we have established this new relationship, a sensory drive with something called Landon's Puzzle Pieces and various community partners to include one of our local businesses, Liam's Chance Behavioral Services, and some other community business partners. Landon's Puzzle Pieces was first established in Alabama in 2020 by Landon, who is a young boy with autism, and his family. For his 8th birthday, Landon asked to help other kids with autism by sharing sensory items that he felt helped him in his development. Now in its 5th year, Landon's Puzzle Pieces has provided thousands of sensory items to children in local schools, through nonprofit organizations, and to families of homeschoolers. Virginia is actually the 5th state to join with Landon's Puzzle Pieces. And according to their website, it appears as though Warren County is the first in Virginia to have this partnership and have been approached about this. Customers of participating community partners can scan a QR code or click a link if it's on a website, and that leads customers to an Amazon wish list that was created by families, by teachers, by folks in the medical community. And that list, when you click on the link, it says LPP, Liam's Puzzle Pieces, Warren County, Virginia. And any items purchased from that wish list, they go to this Liam's Chance organization within our community. And those are made available for teachers and families to go and shop. So they are provided to folks who need them free of charge by those folks who felt the need to donate. To connect with the wish list, there's a link there. It is important that when you are using that wish list, when you select your shipping site, you need to enter the Liam's Chance street address so that they go to the right place. But we are really grateful for the establishment of this new partnership. And it was brought to us by Mr. Badalana from Landon's Puzzle Pieces, as well as Mr. Herbeck, locally from Edward Jones. And we're just very grateful for additional community partners.
Any questions on this, Ms. Fillon? Thank you so much.
Okay, next up this evening, we're moving into the action agenda. I'm not going to read this because I don't think that I have anybody that's going to participate. But first reading of the policy GC professional staff. If there's anyone from the public that would like to speak.
Ms. Cheap. Good evening. It's getting dark outside. I'm not ready to fall back for daylight savings time. I'm like yawning over there. It's getting dark. All right. So this evening is our first reading for policy GC Golf Charlie for professional staff. So this was a policy, if you will, I guess, through the BDOE for applications for local eligibility license. And so this is for those new and uprising teachers that we're building and working with on like more of the student support that can apply for a license. And this is a non-renewable license. This all goes through the BDOE. But for us to be able to accept those applications to move forward, we felt that it would be appropriate to add it into our policy. So the first reading, hopefully you've had a chance to be able to read through that, the red line copy to see what we've added. From the provisional side, I just went through Virginia Code 22.1-298.1 and literally copied and pasted in some of those updates that they had. So
this non-renewable and it's only 1 year. Is the hope that it's going to be sort of the foot in the door toward getting a permanent license?
So this would be a great recruiting method as well to be able to say, hey, we can provide you this 1 year local license, to become a teacher with us. They're on the teacher's staff, the salary. Right now we have 13 people qualified, so we have to review their transcripts. They can't just apply. Like they have to be ready within that year. So the 13 that we have, I don't have exact numbers. Most of them, they have their 4-year degree. They just need to do the praxis test, for example. And then once they're done with that, then they'll actually have their license. But while they're studying or getting ready for that, or maybe anything else that they need to complete, like we have somebody graduating in December from their 4-year program. So just little things like that where we would make sure that they're qualified, they can apply. Even if we submitted it incorrectly, which I wouldn't say we would, but it would be stopped by the BDOE. They would be able to look at the application and say, no, you don't qualify for this. And for our tracking purposes, that was one of my questions I had, they will have a different license number. It'll start with like a special number or character so we can identify them too, even in our system. So next year, we're not paying them on a teacher's salary if they didn't actually complete this, just for our tracking purposes. So,
Are those 13 people in positions now?
yes,
Yeah.
So if you know what, so this was a push from the General Assembly. It went into effect back in July. And if you know, we have some of our staff that are on that student support
yeah.
contract. So it's like $5,000 less than a base salary. This would be the local license for those that 1 year, the school board, or well, actually as a division, we say we're going to give you one license. It's only good for 1 year, and it's only good for Warren County. You have that year to get all your stuff done, but you have a local license. So that would take them off of that student support scale, and that would move them to a proper scale on the teacher scale, wherever that may be. You know, we put that in a couple of years ago because we didn't have a mechanism, and so we were putting those people a little below the starting salary scale of our teachers. But now this would allow us to actually put them on the starting scale because they have a local license. Now, the one thing I wanted to talk to the board about is that, you know, if you don't have any issues with this, I would like to get some of these already submitted because I know it takes 3 readings to approve the policy. But here's the thing, Virginia Board of Education is 3 months behind on things. Now, typically what we do is when we submit an application, we go ahead and we move that person up because we're not, the only time we will submit an application is when we know it's going to get approved. And so we know that because now all we're doing is waiting on the red tape at the Department of Ed. And so I would like to go ahead and get these submitted so that those staff members can get their 1 year license right now so that we can go ahead and up them to where on that teacher scale with that 1 year. But I know we have to have three readings. So I just wanted to talk about that now. Each license or each request has to be assigned by me and the board chair when it comes to submitting those to the Department of Education. So that was one thing I also wanted to talk to the board about tonight because they are behind when you look at what the state's doing with when it comes to their certifications.
Is it 1 year from July 1 or from the time that we?
So typically when you get a contract, it's retroactive to July 1. So if we got them now, typically what you see is the state doesn't say, okay, you're approved of November 1st to November 1st next year. They don't do that. They will say July of 24 to June 30th of 25. So that's typically what happens. We would need to check in on that to make sure. But I do know that's typically what happens at any licensure. It always reverts back to the previous July.
And by doing this, we're not eliminating the student support, like that level that we already created as a board, because there will be some people that would not fit to this.
That may not
local license.
Yes, it may.
So beyond that level.
That would not qualify for this 1 year license.
And are the current 13 that you have, they have checked every box, they're ready to go, we just need to send it in and send it?
Yes. Yeah, because
So
we
that
have 18, I'm sorry to cut you off.
Okay.
We have 18 total in student support, and only 13 of them, we would accept those applications and have them filled in.
So you're asking us to be able to, not to approve this thing yet, but to say, since the BDOH takes this such a while, 13 that you believe meet all credentials.
Yeah, it's what's best for the employee. And if we could go ahead and just, get those submitted, also move them to the proper step where they would be on the teacher scales, well, that's an increase in their salary. But it's just the right thing to do for the employee. Now, those others that don't meet it, so if we had 18 that qualified, there's only 13, they would stay on that student support coach contract. As until they met some of those criteria to where they would be able to then submit an application. So,
The only problem I'd have is if for some crazy reason they didn't get approved, but we are already paying them as on an approved scale, the new scale of what we need to have a plan to do with that.
so that would be for this year. They would get that. So at the end of next year, so starting next year, if they're still with us and they didn't finish their requirements, then they would drop back to that student support coach scale. That they have to meet that requirement because I think they're only eligible one time.
Only one time.
Yeah, it's only a one-time deal. So it's not that I can keep getting a license, a one-year license every year and not do my stuff. It's a one-time thing. And so if you don't meet those requirements, then sorry, we're going to slide you back over onto this scale and here's your salary.
And that's why they're doing a special code on the license.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was for arm tracking, just to make sure, like, did they? Because then, like, we have to resubmit it that, hey, they did complete this, here it is. But the ones that didn't, I don't want anybody falling through the cracks. So we would have that as well.
If you need that.
But Chase, David, what you were I thought that you were asking was, what if, God forbid, the BDOE says no, yes, and then we already are bumps it up, what happens then?
Yeah. Not we have such valid question.
It is, but I don't think we when we submitted the proper documentation and we go off that checklist, I can't think of any that have been denied that I am aware of. I mean, we're not going to submit it unless we, and a lot of times what you see is they will contact the BDOE and they'll have a conversation, say, hey, I want you to look at this, go over this. I know Kindle does that a lot in preparation and sending something. And so we're not going to send it unless we know it's going to get approved. There's no sense in sending it. And it's pretty cut dry as far as the eligibility for that. And as long as they met that eligibility requirement, and yes, we can check every single box on that, then we're not going to move.
The way you just described it was how it's previously described to me because of that 3-month lag time that they are calling from HR and getting kind of that verbal. And even though apparently it still takes the BDOE 3 months to approve it on the phone, they can say, yes, this looks good. I think they know government for this.
That say police say had it sapping for an inch. Why?
Well, I know personally, I know we're going to do the readings, but I don't have a problem with the 13 being checked off. Simon. Yeah, I think. And so we'll have another reading next time. Okay. All right. Approval of mileage reimbursement. Well,
You get me all night. Let's go. All right. So for mileage reimbursement, this is really trying to kind of align the IRS mileage reimbursement fuel rate is 67 cents. So that has went up. That is a suggestion. We are not required to pay the 67 cents. But we have staff that are maybe more comfortable driving their personal vehicle to and from places. So it's increasing 4 cents, and I'm rounding up a little bit here, 3.5 or 4 cents to go to 34 cents per mile versus the 0.315 cents that we had been offering.
any questions on this? What you said the IRS rate is 67 cents. Why do we not offer it?
Because we offered vehicles, so they can take a school vehicle. And so we're paying for that. We pay for the fuel, we pay for the insurance. So it's really, they can hop in a vehicle, take it, and it still costs to them at all. So if they choose to take their own vehicle instead of a school vehicle that is available, then, you know, that's.
Is there ever a situation where they wanted to take one of our vehicles but they're not available, or we don't really encounter that?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I haven't heard that yet. Now, I do know we had a group, well, the group that was in here earlier, that were down in North Carolina. They did have a van breakdown on them down there. And so we did have to rig something, and we did have to get our van towed back up here, which was a pretty pity for getting it towed back up here. But, you know, we did work through, it wasn't at their cost. So we foot the bill for the rental, we foot the bill for everything that they had to do to get back up here. So that was their own personal culture that, now they're in a different situation. But I have an experience that I could ask Mr. Mitchell to see if you want me to. But we have vehicles at all of our schools, and then we have the fleet, there at transportation. So
If someone does take their own car and get paid this amount, and something like that happened where their car broke down, we don't have any, that's just on that. That's on that. Okay.
Then why not incentivize them taking their own car and just offer the 6 to 7 cents and not have to worry about our cars sending it towed back and pay for extra hotel rooms and all that stuff? Like, I don't know. Is there something on this here?
What is the cost? Like, how much do we usually pay a year? I mean, I don't know that right now.
I don't know it off the
Know that right now.
we don't pay out a lot of money.
That's what I was wondering.
We pay it's very minimal for the amount for what we do pay out. One of the things you also have to remember is that every school is in town, so you can drive to 3 different schools and only go a mile in your vehicle. I think we have very few people that
Turn
mileage in because every school is at town limits. But there's a vehicle sitting outside central office that sits out there all the time and nobody hops in it when they go to a school. So they're making a choice to drive their own vehicle over grabbing the school cart and digging into a school.
I'm just paying the 6 to 7 cents.
I mean, get rid of the fleet that we already have. Get rid of the school cars and just say, hey, if you want to go someplace, we'll just reimburse you. Is that what you're recommending?
I don't think that's going to be good.
I think it would phase some out, maybe, or at least avoid.
You're just saying like incentivize them.
Yeah, choose their
People more. You're 67 cents. So
I think that Jane. Well, that's the board's decision, but I would not recommend that at this point in time. Until we could have some discussion onto what you would do with the fleet, because you have a fleet of vehicles that we are paying for, we do maintain, we do take care of. But then you're increasing your cost when there are vehicles that are sitting there not being used that we are paying for.
But you're kind of saying it like the vehicles aren't being used, but they're being used for like activities and some of them. So, I mean, I guess that's like older students and the personal vehicles. And we have those in case we have to transport a student, and they have that.
I'm wondering for Sandy.
Yeah. So I'm okay with keeping it at the early 4 cents. In that direction.
I move that approval be given to increase the mileage reimbursement from 31.5 cents per mile to 34 cents per mile.
Is there a second? Second. Any additional discussion on that? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
And before we move on, I will look at that with Aaron to have the conversation and to see how many vehicles we would have to phase out or what we would do or what the plan would be and go from there. But we do have to have a fleet for student transportation, and then we could come back at a later time and say, okay, here you go.
That seems like really good information to have, just to see what's sitting around, the seniors. That'd be great.
Dr. Cockford, did you get that? If so,
Thank you, Dr. Kotzer. All right, next up we have approval of specific positions salary scale.
thank you. I'm hopefully now worded correctly because it wasn't all of the salary scale, so it's just a few. So to kind of start off how this came about, I'm not counting, but I've been here 5 weeks. And so I've called and made some offers to new hires. And I have offered 4 part-time car drivers, and 2 of them have declined due to wages. So Virginia Department of Labor's minimum wage is going up in January, 41 cents. Not a lot, but it is going up. So I believe 2 weeks ago when we had met, I had talked about the tutor salary, we did increase it. And then after kind of getting some no's and declines, it was like, well, maybe we should be looking at retention and attracting candidates as well. We spent a lot of time interviewing them and trying to get them in, and then for them to be like, oh, this is only $12 per hour, I'm not doing it. We started looking at everybody that was on the $12 hourly wage, which is our substitute, dining room aides, intern, part-time car drivers, part-time dining room aides, pony driver, and work study student, and looking to increase them all from $12 to $15 per hour.
And so, like, the substitute dining room aide, that's going to be at the elementary schools, kind of the cafeteria monitors. And so that's like probably a 2-hour window-ish.
I have a lot of there anyways, but they'd forget. And either them, it would be maybe an easier conversation to offer 15 versus 12.
Do you know what this would add to the salaries a year?
The one I know, we have the most of the pony driver, just from my experience, and we just heard that's only 5 weeks, so please take that with a grain of salt. So I don't see it increasing a lot. Like, I know we don't have any interns right now. I don't have anybody listed as a work study student right now, so I know that some it's not even being utilized but budgeted for. So there would be an impact. I can't say that there wouldn't be, but I don't believe it would be detrimental to the budget.
What's the work study student? What exactly what is that?
That's a carryover from many, many years ago when there were programs where students, as part of their high school experience, would come and work at the school. We had some in the school board office and things like that, maybe did clerical work and things like that. It's just something that stayed on that salary scale ever since then, and I really don't recall us having any in the past probably 15 years anyway.
I asked the state a question because I didn't know what that was, and Blue Ridge Tech maybe has used it in the past recently too for working with people out in the community to get their HVAC or electricity license and things of that nature, coming in to coach the students and taking them out, so they've been compensated. But like I said, I don't think it's been used in a while, but that's how it was described to me.
We had there's a discussion, I don't know, sometime this year about raising the hourly salaries of some custodial people through Sodexo. Maybe it was through them we maybe it was from 12 to 15 or something. Does anyone know because one of the reasons you're bringing this is it's hard to find people to do it. Do we know if that system worked? If we're now finding it easier to get custodial people because we raised the salary for the hourly price for that?
So Mr. Helmet is back there shaking his head. Yes.
Okay.
They are fully staffed now.
Okay. So that's just that theory worked.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if you could go to work at McDonald's or something, it's $15 an hour,
Right.
or drive a bar for Warren County for 12.
No, I agree.
Yeah. So
What I would suggest on this, maybe we put an effective date. I don't know if there's an effective date when this new wage would go in effect.
And then ideally, I would like today, because today the new payroll start date, so it just kind of worked out perfectly, starting the 16th of October.
Are there any additional questions on this item?
The only one I struggle with is the work study students, just because they're essentially getting trained for free, which is experience things that people have to pay for. I was just
It was only we use it, so.
right to all of a sudden we're $50 an hour. We might end up having a whole bunch of people inside up for it.
I don't have a requisition posted for that position, so they can apply even if they wanted to. They'll have it open. If that helps, okay. And maybe when we review the budget and the line item, that one just, if it's not being more this, it goes away. I don't dare to speak to them. I don't know what.
I just asked Ms. Drake to look at all the $12 an hour positions and bump them all to 15.
Okay. A motion, however you want for that.
I move that approval be given to increase substitute dining aid, intern, part-time car driver, part-time dining room aide, pony driver, and work study students compensation from $12 per hour to $15 per hour.
Effective today, October 16th, yes. Is there a second?
That's the bit.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Next up is approval of athletic timesheet. Yeah.
So we have timesheets. To my error, I did not realize that this was actually in a regulation. It's DL-E2, where we have timesheets listed. So as 2 weeks ago, we were updating the tier timesheet. This needs to be added within that as well for the timesheet because this is something that's an active use. Regardless, because we're using it within there. So for right now, they're having struggles finding people to help. And honestly, some of them are getting, like the volleyball line judge is getting paid $15 per game, more or less just donating their evening to help us out. So when talking to Mr. Cup and Mr. Hall, just looking at how can we merge a few of these and be a little bit more competitive to be able to get people in. I know like the football teams right now, there's a ref shortage, and so some of their games have to be held on a Thursday. So again, just trying to be competitive and getting some people in to volunteer their time with some compensation on that. So the three specific ones are the volleyball line judges. Right now they're getting $15 per game. Request is to move them to $25 per game. And then for the baseball and softball, changing the title, clock operator per game was 25, but also they're doing the scoreboard and announcing it because they just can't find somebody else to announce. So increasing that from 25 to 50 is it's kind of two jobs. And then for soccer, the athletic trainer sub, it's $36.39 right now, and then increasing that to 40. And so that one's used. We have an athletic trainer that's in the military, and so when they are doing drill, we have to find somebody to cover for them. And that's why the number was that way, and then just being able to get them in with that talent at $40 an hour.
Any questions on these three raises? Is there a motion?
Since some of these are in season already, would it make sense to make it effective back to the first of the, I don't know, I mean, again, just sort of the effective date when it.
Because you could go back, we would have a record of who we paid out, and what, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I'm just saying, I mean, since we're in the middle of the season, do we just start it at the end of the season right now or make it retroactive for those that have already done the work but not yet got paid?
I would recommend for those, I mean, they already are today. I mean, many people did what they did for the Christ that they agreed to before today.
Yeah, I would say do an effective date today. Because we're still only, I think, halfway through the season of volleyball. I mean, there's still
3 weeks.
Yeah, or a month and a half or more, yeah.
Is there a motion?
I move to approve an increase of the volleyball line judge pay from $15 to $25 per game, to combine the baseball, softball clock operator role with the scoreboard announcer position and adjust the pay from $25 to $50 per game, and to raise the athletic training substitute pay from $36.39 to $40 per hour effective today, October 16th.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you, Ms. Drake. Next up, we have the fiscal year 2024 closeout. Dr. Ballinger and Mr. Valentine provide.
As you're aware, we have been, for the last 2 years, I believe, appropriated by the Board of Supervisors categorically by budget categories that are spelled out by the state of Virginia. And at the end of the year, when we do our final accounting of all of our accounts and reconciling with the county finance office, that's who the spreadsheet that shows the different appropriation amounts, the original and then all the additional ones that you've requested and they've approved over the course of the year. And then our actual expenditures, you can see we went over on category 62,000, which is administration, attendance, and health. And what we're asking now is for your approval to go to the Board of Supervisors and ask them to transfer money from a category which did not go over, and the one that was selected here was the maintenance and operation and maintenance budget, 64,000. So I've also included a sheet that sort of shows the lines under the 62,000 category that went over, and attorney fees, as you're probably aware, was probably the largest, or was not probably, but was the largest one that was behind that category going over. Glad to answer any questions or try to that you might have.
Motion to superintendent. Is there a motion?
I move that the superintendent be authorized to request approval of the Warren County Board of Supervisors to transfer $230,000 from category 64,000 operations and maintenance to category 62,000 administration, attendance, and health within the fiscal year 2024 budget.
Is there a second? Second discussion on that? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you. Work session. Our first item this evening is the Proffers and Advisory Committee. We sort of tabled this from the last work session. We just, Salins had really kind of wanted to lead this, and then unfortunately I couldn't be here, so here we are.
So essentially, as we are seeing for new developments passed, with rezoning requests, developers have to state what their fiscal impact is likely to our community for roads, water, sewer, and schools. And what I've been noticing is that the proper requests, the proper offerings from the developers are quite low for the schools. And the demand and burden that all these students are going to place on the schools, I believe that our school system should have a seat at the table for these discussions. Warren County is set up a little differently than a lot of different localities. I've heard Prince William County, Manassas City is inside Prince William County, but they have their own separate schools. So it's done differently. However, in Warren County, the town holds all of our schools. It's all town and county intermingled. But when the town votes on rezoning requests, the county they don't get a vote in it. So I think where we need to address this is on the build up, the working phase. So for instance, with this last rezoning request, the schools are getting a mere $3,300 per school. And I think that we need to do several things to get that dollar amount up. I think we need to look at, we're talking about an elementary school here, so it's going to be the next needed school. We need to look at what the true all-encompassing cost of that is going to be. The land, the building, the staffing, the furniture, all of it, and get a more accurate number now that we're in 2024 inflated dollar amounts, and then get a better student yield formula in place to determine how many kids are going to be coming out of these homes. I just can't imagine that 4 or 5 bedroom homes are going to produce only one child. I've looked at some neighboring areas and they have more detailed breakdown, which that's really more something that the county is going to have to work on their application requests. But Fairfax has very detailed numbers as far as, well, if you've built a home with this many bedrooms,
whether or not you're actually producing that number of children, you have the potential to house the number of children in this hall. So therefore, we have to assume that this is going to be the yield. So I would like to update our student yield formula and then also the calculation for fiscal impact. What I've proposed, what I would like to propose to formally propose, I've had conversations, but nothing formal, is to have the town and the county and the school system truly come together and form a liaison committee similar to what we see in Northeast Northern Virginia County, there, when the planning and zoning are having these meetings early on, we can have a seat at that table and truly advocate for our school system early on. Because typically by the time I see these things come across, the meeting is already scheduled and I'm standing in front of a town council who is ready to vote right then and there. And it just doesn't give me much of a leg to stand on in arguing that. So the other thing I think I had requested was that the county has the development review committee, and I was noticing that formally, I believe Buck went to some of those. Didn't he start going to some of those?
Yeah, and Dr. Coster has followed up. I know you, and he and Brian attend a lot of the meetings on the county side. So he can kind of talk about the meetings that he does attend.
Okay. What I was noticing though is that the school system isn't formally listed on the county side as being a truly like a participant.
Right. I think they have like would that be a voting member?
I don't know if they vote or I've never attended one of those meetings, quite frankly, but I saw that it was listed that the sheriff's department attends and the police and fire and this and that. And it's like, well, there's one glaring absent here, and that's the school.
The school. We do some representation.
We're there, like when you're referencing the Warren County Building Committee, Mr. Johnson and I both attend those. We both started attending those when we got the invitation to come to the table. And so we've been attending those, and there they'll share it is a discussion, and then we are asked what building projects we may be having there. So everybody kind of shares everything at the building committee, that's the Warren County Building Committee.
Is that the same thing as the development review committee?
No, ma'am. That's different. I do attend the Warren County Development Review Committee. That's more of where you do hear about zoning. And that's when they come to request certain zoning things. Like, for example, I know the one thing that you are referencing that happened prior, I don't know the number of years ago, prior to me taking this position, where it was rezoned from a low density to a high density housing, which meant that the numbers did increase. So, but that's where those normally take place. The different things we're talking about, for example, it can go anywhere from if a campground needs, added extension, the Virginia Department of Transportation's there. It just depends on what is taking place within that's within the county. And then, so there are two different ones, just one. But I've been sending that one also.
I'm going to look more into this development review committee because my understanding was that it was different than the building committee in that those meetings only include developments and not just rezonings, but also because obviously proffers are not offered when somebody just simply builds what they are already zoned to build.
Correct.
But they're still producing kids to come to the schools nonetheless. So we need to know as far in advance, if possible, that, hey, we're building a new apartment building or we're building a new subdivision. I'm going to just look up this development review committee real quick, but I'm 99% sure that what I read, that's where they discuss all the developments. Purpose of the Warren County Development Review Committee is to offer a venue whereby staff members from various county, town, and state departments can discuss development applications and permitting issues of mutual interests that may affect the county and or towns in an effort to foster better communications and planning. So, yeah, I feel like we should be a part of that.
Yes. Oh, yes, I agree.
Okay.
And the met Dr. Ballinger and, the ones with Mr. Helmut, we attend we try to give feedback. I mean, and a prime example of one that I know our building committee is going to discuss it, that it's a special request zoning, so there's no proffer that can be asked for, but there is a possibility of an apartment complex coming in, and I believe they said that there's approximately 200 students that could be living in this apartment complex. So, you know, when you hear that, the first thing is, are 200 students coming in, or are 200 students moving from certain zone areas? So those are the kinds of things that we need to bring back to the table, so that you all can know, that we can share with Dr. Ballinger, that he can share with you all, to say, hey, you know, these things are happening as soon as we hear about it. So you are correct. Yes, ma'am. I do agree that we do need to make sure that we're a part of that and come back and share the information with that.
And you're attending those now?
Yes, ma'am. I am attending those now.
Someone from town council is there and someone from the supervisors are there?
At the ones for the county development review committee, that's set up all.
Says the committee includes representation from Warren County Building Inspections Department, Warren County Planning Department, Brett Royal Planning Department, Brett Royal Public Works, Virginia Department of Transportation, Virginia Department of Health, Rappahannock Electric, Brett Royal Warren County EDA. We're not listed on there. So I think
We may not be listed, but you know, but I have been attending. But normally the ones that are normally listed are the ones that have something to say for somebody's bringing something that's being built. I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain it. So if you want to jump in and help me out, explain it a little bit better, you might be able to put a better building term.
We've been attending the
building
committee meeting. We were invited to the county building committee 2 months ago, first time. But I've never been asked or been invited by the county board of supervisors to attend the meeting.
Yeah, so that the other meeting, which is the development review committee, is the one that I've also been attending, and that's the one where and those are the ones. All the people at the table there are the ones who
with the infrastructure.
Yeah, thank you. That's the word.
Looking for the infrastructure of being able to build it, that whether you need the roads, the electricity, the sewer, the water, you know, how to pipe all that to the place. As far as the schools, you know, all we need, you know, one, we need classrooms, you know, to put all these kids in, but really all we need is a road to get there and get them back. You know, and then classroom space. But yeah, so as far as the infrastructure, it does affect us with our capabilities, but that the people that are on there, you know, that's getting all of the to make it happen.
Who, for that meeting we're talking about, who's in charge of it?
Mr. Welding, if I'm saying his name correctly. He is normally the one that orchestrates it.
Okay.
Depending on what projects are being done, or what projects are needed to be done.
Is there voting that goes on there, or is it just conversation basically?
It's conversation as the proper paperwork is for, you know, can they put in this, can they add an extension to this part of the road so that the campers can come into this new campground they're wanting to do? Have they got the proper paperwork done? Those kinds of things. Those are the discussions that are had there. There's no, as far as the meetings I've seen, I have not seen any voting for it actually.
It's a lot like our building committee meeting where we meet and talk about the issues, and then it's sent to the school board.
Got it.
They take those to the board.
Okay.
Maybe the best way to go forward with this would be to discuss this with the supervisors at our building committee meeting, next week, and see what the supervisors are willing to do to have better workability. I know Mayor Cockrell has added this, or it's requested to add this to the agenda for tomorrow as a conversation about creating a liaison committee. But I consider the public school system to be an essential part of the infrastructure of a community, and we are always the ones who are forgotten about until the development is dumped in our laps. So I would like for us to fight to get a seat at every table that we can possibly get a seat at, so that we are considered in the earliest stages possible, because nobody's going to look out for our needs if we don't look out for our needs and just speak up for what we need and where our kids need.
Well, and I think then there's no surprise when it comes budget season, and now we have potentially 200 more students that we're trying to account for, or all of a sudden we're asking for a new elementary school. Like, that allows for the planning, and so hopefully that's on everybody's radar that way.
It's this way. God, very good time.
So you guys will talk about it next week then.
Yeah, so if we can just add that to the agenda for next week, please, and that would be go from there, see what their feedback is.
Okay.
It's weird. And then our last item this evening on our work session is the evaluation of the school board operational procedures. We had done our self-evaluation several months ago now. We talked at the last work session about just kind of each thinking about a few goals that we wanted to see as a board over the next few months of this year, and just decided we talked about those this evening. Mr. McBeth, I know you
Have something to say?
they were ready.
Yeah, I mean, you as the chair had looked through, reviewed the evaluations we did and picked on some, and focused on ones that are, since it's our first year doing this, ones that are more about strategic planning, ones that we can get a kind of an overview of what's going on. Obviously, it's the strange part of being on a school board is we come and go depending when we're elected or moved out or whatever. It's a moving group. And so you had listed 6 of the 6 points that were graded by ourselves as not being very good or done very frequently or very well. And so I've created one goal that could benefit us in looking at this. The strategic plan, we've talked about it a couple times, and we've kind of gotten back to it from hearing some reports about it. I mean, that's by definition the one. It should be what's driving us, even though most of us that are involved in it weren't here at the creation of that strategic plan. It is what it is. It was what was decided on, and I guess come 2026, 2025, we'll have to come up with our own plan to implement for the next one. But one of the things that we've talked about all year long is all about reporting. I mean, obviously, we're not doing the work. We're listening to things and making decisions. So I think one of the things that we've been getting better at, and thank you for all the work of the school main office, is reporting on things to keep us informed about what's going on. And it's one of those things that sometimes the people in the trenches know so much more about it than us. We're popping into your world every once in a while, whereas I think getting more reports so we can have a better understanding from that sort of layperson's point of view is beneficial. So one of the things I suggested is that a goal would be the board will receive regular reports on the comprehensive long-range plan and review defined metrics and performance data to ensure goals are on track to being achieved. I mean, it's not a monumental goal, but it's just, we'd like to do it. So we hear all these reports on a regular basis, but reporting in a way that sort of, as I mentioned in Ms. Bragg tonight, like specifics that we can look and go, okay, that thing, that one that aspect is being covered as well, and not just glossed over, not in a negative way, just that you already know the answer, but we don't know the answer. So I went through on a sheet of paper here that the other board members have, but basically saying, so for example, objective 1.0, all schools will score above 90% in all SOL tested subjects. I'd like to hear on a regular basis a report on schools meeting objective standards. Obviously, we get that through the accreditation time. We had a report on that. Then report on schools not meeting them, and then what are some of the measures implemented to meet the objective standards, which you heard tonight, some measure, but packaged up and saying, well, this is why we're reporting on it, that it's all going towards this 1.0, rather than us or the viewers at home having to take it all together and sort of get a picture of it on its own. Second one, objective 2.0, we will recruit, deploy, and retain a highly qualified staff. We talked about this tonight, and we're already doing things about it, but a report listing of all staff by what their school, what position they're in, the name, the length of employment, what credentials they have, who's getting a one-year license, who's got a longer license. Those things don't change all that frequently, but something that's sort of, there it is, maybe it's a quarterly report, maybe it's a monthly report. Listing of openings. Objective 3.0, 100% of students will graduate from Warren County Public Schools prepared to enter the workforce. I'd love to hear on a regular basis, where are we on that goal? We say we're going to have some things done by it. I'd like to hear reports. So we can pass this off if this is something we're interested in, to read all the ins and outs. But basically, for every objective that was on there, I just created a statement saying it would be great to hear a report on it. So, for example, even building transportation says vehicle purchase and maintenance. I'd like to get an annual report on school bus maintenance replacement plan. We hear part of it from Aaron frequently about different things, but data is related to, okay, regarding the strategic plan reporting thing that you people need to hear about, this is what we're talking about. Or route and bus stop reviews for safety and efficacy. An annual report on the school bus route evaluation. Do we evaluate it? What have we found? Is it there's less kids going this or that way? Is there a way that we can save money? So it's basically looking at all the strategic plan and the goals that are in there and turning them into, could we have a report on a regular basis that we know this report is about the strategic plan? You can talk about other things too, but that would be there. So that was kind of one of the goals I came up with.
Well, yeah, and I think tonight Ms. Bragg didn't even know she was doing it, but when she gave her presentation, she had objective 1.0 and 2.0. So I think we've already talked about sort of breaking the strategic plan out throughout our work session through the year and having little chunks of it instead of kind of getting all of it in this big long work session. But I think as everybody goes and does their thing, if they sort of acknowledge through each work session, this is what it's tying to, so that way we're also aware and can tie it back in too, so we know we're getting updated on it.
Right, my belief is all these things are being reported in some manner, shape, or form. It's just for us to be able to understand that it's that thing again, subjective 2.0, this is what the report stands for, this is where we stand on that. So again, for those of us who are not in the day-to-day operations, and you guys all know all this stuff, I think it's good to be able to have a report to say we're better informed. And again, going back to the beginning of my story, was saying we have people coming and going on the board at different times. If we have a set standard of operation, this is what we report on, this is how it works. Next time we do a strategic plan, we're also going to incorporate the reporting features of that. It just sort of helps new people like myself, for sure. And
So, like hearing the BALS score data was helpful to know that we have a third of the kiddos meeting reading plans. Would that normally be reported to us? I mean, we usually have all the various benchmarks and things like that reported to us, but like just a real brief overview, if we don't see exact. We don't need to in the nitty-gritty, but hearing that, okay, we have a third plus with reading plans. Mental note, hopefully next year we have a little less than a third that have tried reading. You know what I mean? We can kind of track the overall progress.
Yeah, I like this. I like what you've come up with here, Tom. I think this is helpful. And I hope that, I mean, there's a lot here and there's a lot that we're asking, but like you said, I think a lot of this is already being generated. And I would hope that our staff could generate something that they could just like update and fill in. Like you wouldn't be starting from scratch every quarter when you're redoing it, just kind of plug in. One thing that I would also like to see, but it's not always possible, would be, where it's appropriate comparisons, like here's where we are and here's the state average, or here's where we are and here's our neighboring counties, or where we were last year. Just like some comparison points for these, so it's not just like in a vacuum of like we have a third of our people to read those plans. Is that normal? I don't know.
Right, what does the next county have?
Right. Do most people have that too? Or not? Yeah. But yeah, I think this is a good start.
Yeah.
And I think we're already moving in this direction. Which
I think so. Yeah, it's not meant to be anything negative about what's happening. It's just a more structured way to do it. Just like we saw the ESS reports, these ones we've got in the past two times are just amazing. I mean, they all had the same knowledge last year. It wasn't put into a report that we could understand. So sometimes reporting it, having all the knowledge and funneling into a way that we can understand is it to work with that. The point is, we'd like to understand it, I think.
And the one that I looked at that, I mean, we all rated ourselves the lowest on board discusses where the school district will be 5 years from now. And I think, this does encompass all that, and it speaks to exactly, we're changing every 4 years. There's a different, but you still have to have it. You have that setup
in that 5-year plan, that 10-year strategic plan, you just plug those numbers in, and that allows any board on any given day to look at it and say, oh, this is where we're at, this is where we're going.
Right.
And I think, hopefully in a year from now, we rate ourselves, that would be higher than a 2.
Well, and I think not just academic achievement on that one, but that goes also with the proper conversation that we just had and being in contact with the town and county. We set goals for ourselves for making sure that the county is aware of our future needs. And, if we're not talking about what we're doing 5 years from now, like they're not planning for what we're doing 5 years from now. So like, that would tie in with that as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Tom, bringing that to the table.
You're welcome. And I'd be open. I mean, this was a sit down typing moment. If the school staff saw it, said, well, that report wouldn't really work out, or that couldn't work, and we couldn't do that quarterly, or we couldn't do this in a monthly. I'd like to hear, well, what can it be? This is just a dream or whatever. This shouldn't put you down. So I don't want to cause him any more effort, or I just want to make sure that it's something that we can have set in place and have sort of these KPIs and dashboards we'll look at, which would be beneficial for, again, future boards as well.
Well, and I think being more first purposeful in letting the board know and the community know, because everything that we do should be tied to that strategic plan. Right. And if it's not tied to that strategic plan, then we shouldn't be doing it.
How are we doing it?
And so I think it's just, we can be more purposeful in saying, this ties this way. In everything that we do. When it comes to budget season, there's going to be a slide on there, but that has our comprehensive plan on it, and then the budget is built to meet that comprehensive plan. So everything has to be purposeful. So the division's comprehensive plan should tie into the school's comprehensive plan or improvement plan, and that way we're all moving in the same direction. But I think by just start off with, as we talked about, which was one of the things that I discussed with my goal, was making sure that we provide that opportunity for the board just to hear it periodically throughout the year, instead of at one long 2-hour session to talk about our strategic plan. And I think, again, Ms. Bragg, I want to thank you for hitting those 2 points tonight. And then next month, we've already discussed with Dr. Koffner. We'll be bringing Mr. Mitchell in. We're going to be talking about weather and calls, but at that time would be a great opportunity for him to also talk about transportation piece of the strategic plan.
Yeah.
And so you're getting it in chunks.
Right.
Okay, that sounds good. Sounds like opinions to that.
Reuse and closed. I noticed we were the one item that I had asked to add, and we're not. Was that on there?
Was that phase?
I'm here to just kind of bring it in there.
That's so handle.
This motion is made that this open public meeting of the Warren County School Board become a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711. The school board desires to discuss the following matter at a closed meeting. Section 2.2-3711A1. Discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of employees at school board, specifically the personnel report and the personnel report addendum, as well as 2.2-3711, say 2, a student discipline matter.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Mr. Valentine, could you do a roll call, please?
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Dr. Funk? Aye. Madam Chair?
Aye.
Mr. McFadden?
Aye.
Mrs. Salins?
File.